Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Infernity Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile for post-Maze of Memories. We got the new This Creepy Little Punk spell card in the Maze of Memories booster set. It's always treated as an Infernity card, and it also gives you plenty of special summon options in the deck, so I figured an update was due. We do have some cards that are still on the ban list for the Infernities, including Infernity Launcher and Archfiend. It just makes the deck all way too consistent, I would believe, to get more copies of this card. Will we get them off the list one day? I don't know. Hard to say. But until then, I came up with a pretty awesome build using the new This Creepy Little Punk. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the main deck. For the Infernity monsters, I run one copy of Infernity Archfiend, one of our best cards in the deck. When you draw this card, except during the damage step, if you have no other cards in your hand, you can reveal it and special summon this card in your hand. And when this card is special summoned, you can add one Infernity card from your deck to your hand. You must have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this effect. So being able just to search out our new go-to card, This Creepy Little Punk, because it is always treated as an Infernity card, just gives us an additional special summon of an Infernity monster that we have out on the field because of this card. I also run one copy of Infernity Conjurer while you have no cards in your hand. Monsters your opponent control lose 800 attack while you have no cards in your hand, and this card's in the graveyard. You can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect of Conjurer once per turn, so it gives you more easy access to special summon plays and just having another easy target to special summon back as a banished monster using This Creepy Little Punk because of it. For some of the higher numbers for the Infernity monsters, I also run two copies of Infernity Mirage. This card cannot be special summoned from the graveyard. If you have no cards in your hand, you contribute this card to select two Infernity monsters in your graveyard and special summon those targets. So I believe this is just to keep you from looping this card from the graveyard, but being able to special summon more resources back onto the field, especially cards like Infernity Archfiend, because then you just have a search when this card is special summoned. So you can use Mirage to give you two resources with its tribute and then get those cards on the field to make use of. I also run three copies of Infernity Wildcat. I was always mixed on how many copies I want to run of this card in the deck, but just being an easy resource to get rid of other cards in your hand if you open up multiple cards that you need to get rid of, because Infernities rely on having no cards in hand. You can special summon this card from your hand by sending one other Infernity monster in your hand to the graveyard. You can only special summon Infernity Wildcat once per turn this way, and while you have no cards in your hand, you can banish one Infernity monster from your graveyard to increase or decrease the level of this card by 1 until the end of this turn. You're going to use this effect of Infernity Wildcat once per turn. So it is also a tuner that you run as an option to increase or lower the level of this card. So you can go into varying monsters, whether it be Infernity Doom Archfiend, your Infernity Doom Dragon, or even your Void Ogre Dragon. You have all these different synchro plays, which your Wildcat can adjust to and be an easy special summon onto the field for you. Another tuner that we run is Infernity Beetle. While you have no cards in your hand, you contribute this card to special summon up to two Infernity Beetle from your deck. So if you have the level 6 synchro play thanks to your Wildcat, you can then use your Infernity Beetle's tribute to then special summon two more on the field, giving you a level 8 monster, and then having that additional Infernity Beetle on the field to then summon out a bigger boss monster like Baron de Fleur on the field also. I also run two copies of Infernity Necromancer for the final Infernity monster that I run in the deck. When this card is normal summon, it is changed to defense position, and while you have no cards in your hand, this card gains the following effects. Once per turn, you can special summon one Infernity monster from your graveyard except for Infernity Necromancer. So just having that option to normal summon it, switch it to defense, and then if you have that other resource in your graveyard, which the best one would obviously be your Archfiend, because then you can special summon this card out and gain an additional search after it is special summoned. For some of the more generic monsters that I run in the deck, I run one copy of Armageddon Knight and one copy of Dark Grepher. I'm running an additional higher level monster engine that works pretty well with the Dark Grepher special summon for being able to set up it in the graveyard for another additional special summon. Armageddon Knight can also help with that graveyard setup of it, or setting up some of our other monsters to help with the Fiend special summon, one of them being our Stygian Street Patrol, which I'm also running two copies of this card. When this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, inflict damage to your opponent equal to the level of the destroyed monster times 100, but you mostly use it for the banish play. You can banish this card from your graveyard to special summon one Fiend type monster with 2,000 or less attack from your hand. So if you have that additional resource in your hand, hand, you can have the Armageddon Knight via the normal summon, and then send your Stygian Street Patrol to the graveyard, and then give you that one additional special summon from your hand. If that one special summon happens to be the additional play for your Infernity Archfiend, you can special summon that onto the field, and then have an additional search, because it's just when your Infernity Archfiend is special summoned. I also run 3 copies of Tour Guide from the Underworld, just another easy searcher that you can run in the deck, whether you want to go into an Xyz play, which you can definitely do in the deck, or just set up more resources on the field, since it just special summons a level 3 Fiend monster onto the field from your deck. So you can go for cards like Infernity Conjurer to set it up in your graveyard, or give you a tuner play with your Infernity Wildcat on the field. Also, its effect may be negated, but still an easy resource. You can't use it for the Synchro play with Tour Guide, but you have plenty of other special summons to use in the deck as well. And also 1 copy of Archfiend Heiress. For this, if this card is sent to the graveyard because of a card effect or being destroyed by battle, you can add 1 Archfiend card from your deck to your hand, except for Archfiend Heiress. You can only use this effect of Heiress once per turn. So the fact that Infernity Archfiend is at 1, we just need an easier search, and having Archfiend Heiress searchable with cards like Tour Guide being a level 3 Fiend monster can set it up on the field quite easily for us to use and utilize to get at one of the more important Archfiend Infernity monsters in the deck. And then lastly, 2 copies of Destiny Hero Malicious. You can either send this card with your Armageddon Knight from your deck to the graveyard to have that 1 additional special summon thanks to Malicious, or it can be in the hand and you can search out Dark Grepher. We are running Reinforcements of the Army to have a discard to special summon Grepher onto the field, and then have the Banished from Malicious in your graveyard to summon another one from your deck onto the field also. That is it for the main deck monsters. We'll now move on to the spells. I run 3 copies of this creepy little punk. It's always regarded as an Infernity card. You can special summon 1 of your Infernity monsters that is banished in your hand or graveyard. If a face-up Infernity monster you control is destroyed by battle or leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect while this card's in your graveyard, you can set this card. You can only use each effect of this creepy little punk once per turn. You'll use the special summon since it's a normal spell on your turn, but just having the option for your Infernity monster to be destroyed and then reset up this spell card on the field gives you that recycle power to then activate it again, always having a special summon resource for your Infernity monsters. That's why this card's a definite 3 of in the deck. It's just an extender, being able to special summon that Infernity monster. Even if your opponent tries to banish it, you'll still be able to get that resource back to make use of. I also run 2 copies of Infernity Paranoia. You tribute 1 dark monster to special summon 1 Infernity monster from your deck or graveyard with the same level but a different name, but negate its effects. And during the main phase, except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target 1 Infernity monster in your graveyard and add to your hand, giving you more of a recycle for some of the easy make use of Infernity monsters. Or if we have another additional special summon to use, just adding 1 to our hand to make use of that special summon. I also run 1 copy of Infernity Launcher. Once again, this card's at 1, so we can only run 1 copy of it once per turn. You can send 1 Infernity monster from your hand to the graveyard, and you can send this card from your hand to from your field to the graveyard to target up to 2 Infernity monsters in your graveyard and special summon them. Then if you must have no cards in your hand to activate and resolve this effect. This is just the extender, being able to clear your hand out of any Infernity monsters and then set more of them up in the graveyard for you to special summon back. And also 1 copy of Contract with the Void. If you have 3 or more other cards in your hand, discard your entire hand, then you can special summon 1 Infernity monster, that is level 8 Dark Synchro monster from your graveyard, as just another way to get some of those resources you may have invested in already back on the field for you to make use of, while also emptying out your hand for you to use with those cards. For some of the more generic spells to run in the deck, I also run 3 copies of Void Apocalypse. You can discard 1 card to send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. You can send this face-up card from your spell and trap card zone to the graveyard for the Infernoid effect, but you're only using your Void Apocalypse for the discard 1 to send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. This gives you a discard, getting rid of a card in your hand, and setting up another more important Fiend monster in your graveyard for you to use with some much more important spells and other cards we've run in the deck. I also run 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army for the Armageddon Knight and Dark Grepher Search. The 1/1-for-1, you can still special summon your Infernity Mirage from your deck to the field. Cannot be special summoned from the graveyard, but you can still summon it from the deck. And also 1 copy of Monster Reborn and 1 copy of Foolish Burial for the additional setup with both of these cards that they can provide, just extending more and more of your plays. And now moving into the traps, I run 2 copies of Infernity Barrier. When your opponent activates a spell, trap, or monster effect while you control a face-up attack position Infernity monster and have no cards in your hand, negate the activation and destroy that card. Just an easy counter trap to stop a good number of different cards that your opponent may have. And also 2 copies of Infernity Break, because sometimes you don't have to just use a counter trap to negate cards. You want to have more destruction. If you have no cards in your hand, target 1 Infernity card in your graveyard and 1 card your opponent controls. Banish the first target, and if you do, destroy the second target. So even if you banish, you'll still have plenty of resources to get those banished Infernity cards back onto the field for you to use. That is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. I run 1 copy of Infernity Doom Dragon. Once per turn, if you have no cards in your hand, you can select 1 monster your opponent controls, destroy that monster, and inflict damage to your opponent equal to half its attack. This card cannot attack during the same turn you activate this, but still, you can use that resource if you have your Infernity Beetle play, and then use that additional play to go into your Baron de Fleur using this level 8 monster you have. I also have the 1 Infernity Doom Archfiend. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up card on the field, negate its effects until the end of this turn. Then if you have no cards in your hand, you can destroy it. While you have no cards in your hand, if this card battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled, and a Dark Synchro monster that was summoned using this card can make up to 2 attacks during each battle phase. So you may not use it with your Doom Dragon because it cannot attack the turn you use it, but there are other plays you can use it with, like your 100 Eyes Dragon or your Void Ogre Dragon, both needing a Fiend-type monster or just a Dark Tuner in resonance with it, and also 1 copy of Chaos King Archfiend. I don't go into level 7 synchros often, but still a good option for being able to switch the attack and defense of all face-up monsters your opponent control. I like it mostly if you go up against monsters that aren't Link monsters, obviously. And then for more of the generic synchros, 1 copy of Trishula, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, and the 1 Baron de Fleur for some good setup cards, whether you take away your opponent's resources or have more of a lockdown play against them. For the Xyz monsters, 1 copy of Levier the Sea Dragon, if you have just another option to special summon level 4 or lower monsters back onto the field. This card definitely does help with that. And Phantom Knight's Breaksword for more destruction plays with your level 3s and some good tour guide from the Underworld rank 3s to go into. And for the Link monsters, 1 copy of Wee Witch's Apprentice, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Cherubini, 1 Saryuja, and 1 Apollosa. The Cherubini especially for the Fiend setup plays in the graveyard when it would be destroyed by battle or card effect, or being able to send 1 card you control for that 1 other card you control the graveyard instead. And you can send 1 level 3 monster from your deck to the graveyard to set up more and more of those monsters that are Infernities in your graveyard for you to use. That is it for the extra deck. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, the Infernity deck is definitely a very combo-heavy deck, so it all comes down to what you have for your setup. If you use cards like Void Apocalypse, being able to discard 1 card to send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard, if you have that additional setup, or even just some more of your go-to plays, a lot of the investments can come down to what you want to use for them as well. If you have your 1-for-1 in your hand, and let's say just 1 additional monster, depending on what that monster may be, you can use the Void Destruction, and the discard for your additional card in your hand can just be 1 random card. So you can activate your Void Apocalypse, discarding that 1 card from your hand to the graveyard to send 1 Fiend monster from your deck to the graveyard. That Fiend monster will more than likely always want to be Infernity Archfiend just because it's not a once per turn search. So then you can activate your 1-for-1, sending that additional Fiend monster from your hand to the graveyard, and then from there you can go for your special summon of your Infernity Mirage, being the level 1 monster in your hand to use. Then if you have the additional search, you can either go for the banish play from your Stygian Street Patrol to special summon a monster from your hand onto the field. If you go for the special summon, it all depends on what monster you may have in your field and hand. If you have the Infernity Beetle, that's just an added plus. Just remember though, it has to be a Fiend monster. So this comes down to more of a normal summon play that you can rely on, but some of the other special summons can be your Infernity Necromancer if that card is in your hand as well. So then you'll have the special summon play if you have no other cards in your hand, which you've invested a good amount of them in the graveyard. You can then special summon your Archfiend back onto the field as well. Archfiend can search an additional monster. You can search out your Infernity Wildcat, and then from there you have this card to then go for the normal summon onto the field. You can then use your Infernity Necromancer and your Wildcat to go into a level 6 synchro play, summoning out your go-to play for your monster on the field, being your Infernity Doom Archfiend. And then you have the additional play to tribute your Infernity Mirage to target 2 more Infernity monsters in your graveyard to summon back onto the field. If you didn't want to go for the Doom Archfiend play, you also have the option to go into using your Wildcat and your Necromancer to summon out your Cherubini onto the field. And what Cherubini can do is give you an additional send and setup on the field. But if you go for the level 6 play, you can summon this card out and then go for the normal summon of your Infernity Beetle, tributing it if you have no cards in your hand, special summoning out 2 additional Infernity Beetles onto the field. You can then use the first one with your Infernity Archfiend to go for the same Archfiend play we said before, or you can go for the additional setup for a bigger monster on the field, whether it be your Stars Charge Warrior to see what you can draw into for an additional resource to use, or you can use the 2 Beetles on the field additionally to go into the level 8 synchro play, summoning out our go-to Doom Dragon, which can pop a card on the field, then using the last beetle with the Doom Dragon after you use its first effect to summon out your Baron de Fleur, a bigger boss monster with another additional pop and a negate. If you go for more of the special summon setup, you can always go for the Void Apocalypse play. If you have the Void Apocalypse in your hand, and let's say this creepy little punk, and then just one other random monster, you can activate the Void Apocalypse, discarding the card, and then sending the additional card from your deck to the graveyard. So with this send, you can send your Infernity Archfiend off of that setup for your Void Apocalypse, and then you can activate this creepy little punk, and then special summon one of your Infernity monsters from your graveyard or banish, summoning out your Archfiend. You can then activate your Archfiend to search out an additional monster from your deck onto the field as well. And with that play, you can go for any of the additional searches. If you have more cards in your hand to get rid of, it's always that resource you want to dwindle down, but this card is just an easy resource to rely on for all the special summoning and all the searching that you can get with cards like Infernity Archfiend. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. It's a really combo heavy deck, but one that can be a lot of fun with all the different synchro plays, and for the fact that we do have Trishula to make use of. It was one of the most abused systems in the Infernity deck as well. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.